So a couple of things. First of all, as you all know, my name is Beth Jordan, and thank you once again for coming and joining. And this is a virtual Zoom. I was talking to Rona Morrison, who's over here a little while ago, and she had a real life launch. Is that correct, Rona?
Yes, it was a bit scary. 100 folk in a theatre.
Wow, that's pretty good. Well, I'm very happy with the folk I have here on Zoom. So I'm guessing when you're doing a book launch on Zoom, it's going to take on a different feeling altogether. I guess it's a little bit more static. I did a book reading in my local library, and it was really nice to be able to stand and walk around and etc. But I think over here, if I start walking around, it could be a bit too distracting. So I'll put my bum on the chair and relax and hope that all of you will feel relaxed. And there will be a time for us to chat with each other later on. But if I start it off, because a couple of things I'd like to do. So first of all, I want to welcome all of you really, really warmly. I will be reading some of my notes because I can be a bit of a wayfarer and wander off to a topic that is difficult for me to come back onto my tracks. So I'm going to be a bit more careful and mindful of all of you, and mindful that I don't bore the hell out of you by just wandering around in my own head. So I will read my notes, but not too much, I hope. So once again, so thank you for coming along. I'm feeling very emotional and really excited that you've taken the time out to come and join me on my first book launch. It's something that I never thought was ever going to happen, that I would ever write a book. So this is all a very big surprise. In fact, I got to tell you truly, I'm feeling a little bit numb by all of this. I don't know if any of you felt like that when you launched your book and it's finally done, and the excitement you expected to get actually wasn't there. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm not feeling joyous. I've got a glass of wine. I haven't touched it yet. I think I will later on though, but not yet. So anyway, so thank you. If you could, I want to just introduce you to begin with to my very great friend, Rachel Mackay, who's going to be like my co-host because I'm rubbish at techie and she's brilliant. So she's helping me out with certain things in the background that if I have to do it, I'll get very distracted and then I won't be able to be fully engaged with all of you and fully engaged with explaining what it is I'm doing over here and what's this all about. So if you would type into the chat, so Rachel, please go ahead and do a little explanation, please.
Okay, so hi everyone. Yeah, Beth and I have known each other for probably about 3 years now. We're coaching friends, and I can see a few fellow coaches on the call. And I just wanted to say, Beth, that how amazed I am by you and how you're just so talented. You've got all of these talents, writing a book, photography, coaching, just totally amazed by you, and feel very privileged to know you and to have got to know you.
Thank you.
So yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, then please use the chat box and I'll keep an eye on that as we go through, and then we'll come to those probably at the end really, but I'll keep an eye on them and see if there's any that we need to cover as we go along. But yeah, have a great launch. This is my first book launch as well. I'm living vicariously through you, Beth.
So one question, how many of you have actually had a book launch already? I know Michael has, I know Rona, and I know Max has. Helen, about to? Are you about to have a launch?
Not yet. I haven't had mine yet. I'm planning it, but as you can see, well, you can't see, I'm over in Gran Canaria, so I'm just fretting that I haven't got anything organised yet.
Doesn't matter. Thank you. Okay, so I'm also really, really pleased. We have two very famous authors sitting in our group. One of them is known to you, a lot of you, is Michael Heppel. He's just written, I don't know, 16th or 17th book called Write That Book. And I did a class, I did a masterclass with him in 2021 called Write That Book Masterclass. The other very famous writer that we have with us is my good teacher, friend, Dorothy Max Pryor.
I think you've put yourself on mute, Beth.
It's me. I still can't get her off mute.
Can you unmute yourself, Beth?
You hear nothing at all?
It's me. Someone in the group asked me to mute everyone else, so I did, but I muted you as well. So
funny.
Apologies.
Okay, I don't know what bit you missed. I'm going to say we've got two famous authors with us. One is Michael Heppel, who many of you know, who's just written and launched another one of his amazing books called Write That Book. We also have a wonderful lady called Dorothy Max Pryor, known as Max, and she's just published her book called 69 Exhibition Road. Now, what I really like about this is that I have been to classes with both of them. First of all, with Max, down in Brighton, where I used to live. And I did a class, creative writing class with her around memoir writing. And then later on, when I came up to Scotland, I did another class with Michael Heppel called Write That Book Masterclass. And his approach is so totally different. And so what I really love is both of their diverse and opposite styles actually helped me. The memoir writing helped me to understand about how to write creatively, how to show and not tell. And Michael was the other side about giving the drive and the impetus to keep going and to write that book. And that's what really, we need both parts, I think, when we're trying to get our book written and get the book over the line. So I'm going to introduce Michael, first of all, because he has got to go and do something else. So I want to introduce you to Michael Heppel. He is quite an amazing man. I think to date, I don't know, maybe I'm right or wrong, you've got about 2,000 or 3,000 people over the line, Michael. Do you want to explain about yourself? We'd love to hear from you. Please unmute yourself.
Well, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about you.
No, you are for a little while.
We've helped a lot of people to write, publish, and sell their books, and we're helping a lot more. But I've got some things to say about you, Beth, which is what I want to focus on tonight.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I mean, if you want to go ahead, because I'm conscious that you need to go by a certain time.
Okay, well, first of all, the joy of this event, you can feel it right from coming on and hearing that amazing music. It's kind of, you feel like you're taken to Cuba straight away with the sounds. And one of the things that Beth does brilliantly in her book is she transports you to places. And for those of you who are lucky enough to have a copy of this beautiful book, I've got to say, it is stunning. One of the most brilliantly set, one of the best covers. The hardback, the orange arriving with the ribbons, everything. The whole experience has just been wonderful. But then when you get into the words, I'm sure you'll all agree that one of the things that Beth does brilliantly is her descriptions. She takes you somewhere beyond just reading like a travelogue and, oh, well, yeah, I know where I am now. You feel like you're there. And the other thing that she does is, in terms of character development, she gets a connection with the characters very, very quickly. And that is a skill. That is an absolute skill. And I know some people who are, they're full-time authors, and they don't do it the way that Beth has managed to do in her book. So I could wax lyrical about that. But what I thought I would do, so I thought I would go back in time a little bit. So I've attempted to find Beth's very first post that she made to write that book. And I think I found it.
Oh, no.
And it wasn't from Masterclass. It was from the pop-up group. And it was from November the 7th, 2020. Feels like a long time ago now, doesn't it? November the 7th, 2020. And it says here, what's my passion? Now, one of the things that we ask people to do in Write That Book is to post their passion, to talk about what they really care about. And I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to read the highlights because you'll all get this so well. So this is, what's my passion? Poking around in other people's houses and backyards, so to speak, has been my passion for a long time. And then a little bit later on, she says, I hated the usual tourist stuff. I would go down every lane, every backyard of a town or village, always seeking for the intimate of people's lives, always respectful, but with my camera at the ready, and to ask if I could take photographs of people inside their homes, bathing, washing clothes, cooking, etc. And then she describes a little bit more about the journeys and stuff. And then the last sentence, and this is the brilliant one, it said, rarely did I get into trouble until one day in Cuba, I wandered just that little bit too far. How brilliant is that last sentence? And then
I don't believe
immediately,
that. Oh my God. I
yeah,
forgot
well, it's
that
what
written
I printed it out. I printed it out. And then at the bottom, at the first comment from a guy called Alain Barres, and he says, "Nice job. Now, what happened in Cuba?"
Read the
Well,
book.
exactly. We can find out what happened in Cuba. And this is one of those things which is, I think, would you describe it as a fictional memoir, Beth?
I think, this is something I needed to talk to with Max, because it's a memoir. And because the names are changed, to some extent, it automatically becomes a fiction.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you don't recognize the people. And there are parts that are not absolutely real, because I think sometimes when you're writing a memoir, and if it's all fact, you need to be able to link things together, bring it a little bit more alive. Otherwise, for me, it's a bit flat. So there are some parts that are maybe not quite real, but it all blends and melts together.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things where people sometimes they write a memoir, and for them it's really interesting because they were there. They were the people who were experiencing it. And it's kind of, when I was 9 years old, I fell off my bike and I ended up with grit in my knee. And people who are reading it are going, really? Wow, that's fantastic. Good for you. And then there's other times when people write fiction and you kind of go, you know what, that's just too far out. It just couldn't happen. What you've done brilliantly is you've taken stuff that you know to be factual, and then you've just added just enough to make us go, ooh, ooh, oh yes. And then also, because a lot of us on this call know you, we're kind of wondering what was absolutely fact and what were the bits where she's exaggerating a little bit. And my advice to you would be never tell people. Never confess.
Never.
Which bits are slightly, leave us all guessing, because that's part of the joy. So
you're going to have to twist my toes to get me to speak.
we don't
and even
want
then I won't tell.
There's stuff in there which is a bit toe twisting, that's for sure, but definitely toe curling. There's no doubt. So Beth, look, you're one of these people. You've been a joy to work with. You really have. You've taken on board everything. You're a great learner, but also you're a great applier. And I know that one of the very early conversations that we had, I gave you a bit of tough love about how to do stuff. And if you're going to get this over the line, this is what you need to do. And it's about, working hard. And it is about, getting lots of opinion, but at the end of the day, staying true to yourself and all those different balances that you have had to do. And so when we got to the moment where I did an unpackaging for your book.
Yeah.
And often when I do an unpackaging, I'll get it and I'll put the book up there and I'm going to get round to it. But I couldn't resist going in. And I'm really pleased that I did, because as much as I haven't finished all of the book yet, I'm up to I'm up to page 129 is exactly where I'm up to. And I'm gripped. But what I really want to do more than anything, I now want to read the rest of it somewhere hot, because I need to kind of feel that, the atmosphere. I'm sat in the snow outside right now, and I'm reading about these sweaty places and about the glow on people and that type of thing. And I think I'm going to go somewhere hot. The other thing is I love Cuba, and you've managed to bring back so many feelings and so much about Cuba in those words. And I mentioned that I was very fortunate to see Buena Vista Social Club in a community center in Cuba, which was just one of the maddest things of my life, looking back at that time, to do that and to have that feel of the people, but also, as you beautifully explained, the tension. There's a tension that's in the air, that's always in the air. And it's happening for many, many reasons. And you've kept the reader guessing, and you've kept the reader on this journey. And I just know there's going to be some amazing twists that are coming up, and I can't wait to experience those as well. So bravo, Beth. You've been amazing. You've been incredible, and you managed to do it. You managed to write that book. Yay! Oh!
So, and in fact, please, in the chat, Rachel is going to put a little link to Michael's book called Write That Book. And if any of you are ever thinking of wanting to write a book, you've got two brilliant people on Zoom tonight. There's Michael Heppel and Dorothy Max Pryor.
I've got to
And
say, Rachel's very kind saying that my book's available on Amazon, but I'd rather you bought it directly from me, if you wouldn't
fine.
mind.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'll put the link in, because
Please
we've
do.
got, see, these are the last few just down here, the last few hardbacks, and we can send you a signed hardback. And Beth's mentioned in it, and a bunch of the people who are on here today are also mentioned in it as
Oh,
well. They get
okay.
very special mentions. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll do that. I'll pop it in. And Rachel, thank you for being the
Michael.
super admin. That's the toughest job of the lot. And it was my fault that you muted everybody, because I said, "Would you mind muting everybody?" And she clicked the magic button.
That's okay. This is the first time to do it, so there's going to be lots of little blips, and maybe one day I'll get to write another book. I actually have got another one in my head already. It's not a follow-on from Cuba. I don't think I want to do a follow-on to this particular book, but anyway. Thank you for those words, Michael. I'm astounded that you had that first post. That is incredible that you actually kept all of that. That shows the kind of man you really are. Wonderful.
Right there.
Thank you so much.
I've got another 10 minutes. I'm going to hang around till half past.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So, I'm going to introduce Max a little bit later on, because it'll be you'll see the relevance of it a little bit later on. So, I know that all of you, many of you have written books as people, Christine Beach, Dave Rogers, Helen Johns has written a book. Jen Garside is actually the lady who did my book cover. So Jen is a graphic illustrator. Alan Rafferty has written a wonderful story. Rona Morrison has written a story. Deborah Murphy, Deborah, have you as well? Yes. Angie has. Sarah McGough has written, I think, 3 children's books already about Eddie, a wonderful bird. It's about adoption. And if you have children and you want to get a really great book to read to them, Sarah McGough is the lady that look for her. She's on Amazon as well. You can buy her book. And maybe if Sarah, if you want to put into the chat where your book can be bought, that would be great. In fact, all of you, you want to put into the chat where your books can be bought, please feel free to do that and share what you have also written with everybody else in the group. Dave, I know, has written a book, lots and lots of very inspiring things he tells me, which I don't do, which is stupidity. Oh God. Anyway, if I've missed anybody, I'm so sorry. Ruth, I know, has written a book. I think there's some others, but I can't see their names completely. So shall we get on? Because we have only got a certain amount of time. I don't want any of you to start getting yawning and tired. But I want to just carry on. And, you wonder why do we write books sometimes? Why do people write a book? We each have, every single one of us, as we all know, have a story to tell. Some stories we want to share with others. Others we prefer to keep them to ourselves. I know that there are the people from my Brighton group. They were writing a book to share and leave as a legacy to their family. That's what they want to do. They didn't want the public to know. They wanted their family to have a record of their lives. So we write books for all sorts of reasons. So why did I write my book? I've always been a scribbler. I from a very young age, I've been writing down journals. Everywhere I went, I would keep a diary, travel diary. I traveled very extensively for about 35 years, traveling to India and China, South America, to Africa, with my work. So I always kept notes. I regret very much that I didn't keep really great notes on my trips to China, because China has changed in the 35 years that I've been going to China since 1982. China has changed so dramatically. Some parts are unrecognizable. I have photographs that look old and faded, and they're wonderful. So that's my biggest regret. I didn't keep enough information on China. But India, I have copious notes. South America and Africa. And so Cuba, when I went to Cuba, I didn't really keep too many notes, except for when I came to the part where a big pig feast was going to be held in my honor. And that was a tradition in Cuba. I think a lot of you know about Cuba quite a lot. So sometimes a pig will be killed in honor of a guest or for a special festival. And I'd never seen a pig killed. So while this whole festivity and ritual was going on, I had a book in my bag, and I took my book out and I started to actually write down everything that was going on together with taking photographs. And I thought nothing of it. I just kept it. And then when I was sitting in the car, I would write notes on the scenery. I went to see a tarot card lady because I was feeling in a really bad place at the time when I was there. And I wrote all about her. I just kept these notes, never thinking that I would actually use them, turn into a book. So eventually, I started this book. It was, I'm going to read this out because otherwise I'll go off track, which I'm really finding myself. So why did I write this book? In fact, by accident. The accident was that although I had lots of notes about it, I had no thought of writing about it. And one day online, there was an email about writing evolution, creative writing class, memoir writing with Dorothy Max Pryor. And I don't know what it was. I just thought, I like the sound of this. We're in lockdown. So why don't I do something? So I joined Max's class, and I think I stayed with her for about a year. And I learned so much about how to write. And now I'm actually thinking of doing a creative writing degree, because I know that my journey in writing has only just begun. It's a long, long way to go. So that was by accident. I saw that, and I'm so grateful I did, because I started writing that book with Max. I was also, as I said earlier, I was inspired by two people. Max really inspired me. When we wrote a piece and she would look at it, and when she put in her notes, I thought, how come I didn't think of that? How come I didn't write it that way? And Max would always say, syntax, 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 Beth. I was hopeless at syntax. And then, so she inspired me to carry on writing and to write really well and to be descriptive and to get a sense of the place that I was actually in. And then when I joined Michael's class, I must say I was very overwhelmed by the enthusiasm of the group, really overwhelmed. And it actually got too much for me, the overwhelming. I had to leave it at one point. But I liked his dynamism. I liked his pushing you to do better, to feel better, to think bigger, to get over the line. And so I stayed with him, and I did take a break, and I've gone back to him again because I've seen what he does, how he inspires people. I also, not realizing that I had an ability to write, I didn't think I could write. And we can write, but we sometimes need help with how to do it. And that's what I got from Max to begin with. The other side was that because I kept these copious diaries, I thought, what am I going to do with them? And so an opportunity was presented through Max. And I started writing with her. And every week we had to write a piece. And little by little, the book or the story began to come together. The other thing, the reason why I wrote the book was my time in Cuba. I went to Cuba 9 times. It was like pregnancy going to Cuba. What was going to come out of it? And what came out of it was not what was expected. To make sense of the events that actually happened in Cuba, they were not good events. I was in a very bad place when I went to Cuba. My mother had died. My partner of 23 years had an affair and left. I felt really broken. I have my friend Tina over here who knows my story really well. She and I have spent hours talking through what happened. And so I was really trying to make sense of what was going on. And it wasn't that writing the story was a cathartic experience, because I didn't find it cathartic. I think it made me realize quite a few things, made me realize about my own fragility, my own human nature. And how things happen to both men and women when we are in a particular state of mind, that we're no longer able to control how we think rationally or even how we see things around us. We think we're acting rationally, we think we are in control. And certainly from my aspect, I thought I was super cool. I was a woman of the world, I traveled, I've experienced men in the past, not in any sexual way, but I had not experience. I had nothing, I had no experience compared to what happened to me in Cuba, no experience whatsoever. I was a little puppet, and there were master puppeteers who easily manipulated me. And here all the time I was thinking I was in control, I'm in control, I'm in control. So the experiences that took place were really damaging. They left very, very deep scars. So by writing about this, it kind of put it into perspective. It kind of made me realize a great deal. And some of that comes through in the story. And when I think back now, will I let myself get caught out again? I think most likely I will get caught out again by something. I hope I will have learned a little from my Cuba trip to not let it be as damaging as that experience was. So that's something else. So my story, it also goes along a winding road of music and dance, salsa, Argentine tango, Tina and I adore Argentine tango. We've been all over the place dancing. We go to marathons, 3-day marathons. We went at Christmas, New Year's for 4 days. I think we went dancing in the afternoon, in the evening. We actually didn't have sore feet. We were so excited. Tina, you can turn it off and agree with me if you want. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Yes,
So
we were crazy.
yeah, crazy.
And
for
we did
tango.
have sore
Absolutely love
feet.
it. Yeah. And in fact, in Cuba now, tango is being danced like before. It was just usually soul, reggaeton, salsa, and more African-based style dancing, but tango is there now. So I have to say, I actually loved Cuba. I fell in love with it, totally, utterly, and completely. I didn't fall in love with the man. I fell in love with the sense of the place, the retroness of the place. It was like, to me, Havana was like a living museum. And if you get a chance to go there, I think you will get a sense that you are moving back in time. It may not be a place that the Cubans want to be, but for someone like myself, a traveler who likes to really get to know a country, I loved the feeling that I didn't have to be glamorous. There wasn't that glamour. There's a different kind of glamour altogether. I love the word glamour. It has so many meanings. And I know that Max has been to Cuba, so she has a lot of great experiences about Cuba. So it's a great place, but I realized that I thought I understood cultures of people. And when I went to Cuba, I realized I didn't understand the psyche of the people who had lived under a socialist, communist social regime for a very long time, who suffered deprivation, who were very talented, who were extremely clever, where university students, graduates, when they finished and got a job, they earned maybe $12 a month. How they managed to live, how they managed to look so incredibly well-dressed, I get a sense of it, which is in the story. But it's a really fascinating country. It's very fascinating. The psyche of the people is fascinating. It's that Spanish with the Afro, with the Black African, or with the Haitians, with there's Chinese people there, there's Indians. It's a mixture, and I think it's double-edged. They live side by side, and from what I experienced, they get on harmoniously. And to me, sometimes Cuba is like one big network of a family. But it's for them, the extraneros or the strangers don't understand all what's happening around them. And no matter how well traveled you are, there's certain countries I think that you go to, you don't really understand the culture. You think you can read all the books you want. It's something like China. You can go to China, you think you know Chinese. Actually, I don't think anybody understands the Chinese at all. Anyway, so Cuba for me was a total shock. I still love it. I want to go back. I don't want to experience what I experienced. I want to experience what I've experienced. So it's also a story that in time has helped to bring clarity, to acknowledge my human nature, my own human nature, understanding how events, how they unfold. And we think we have control, but there's always a puppet master. And in that story, I really felt that there was a puppet master and I was no more than a little rag doll. And yeah, the rag doll got trampled upon and torn apart. But that's part of life. But being a nosy traveler, I think Michael, he's gone now, mentioned that I really wanted to get to the heart of the country. And so by going off-piste, of not being a tourist, getting to know local people, I went deep into their homes. I went deep into their lives. I got to play with them, go on picnics with them, dance with them, drink copious amounts of rum with them, get to know them. But there was another side to it. And a Cuban dance friend of mine said, once you're there, you become an asset. He said, be warned. So I'm going to leave it at that. Being an asset is not something I really wanted to be. So I think I'm taking a little bit too long. I hope you got a sense of maybe why I wrote that book. It was, in many ways, just to rethink what had happened. Why did I do what I did? What was the outcome of traveling to a place that I thought I would understand, but I didn't, and it became a disaster zone, total disaster. But at the same time, I have good memories. The place, the culture, the humor of the people, how they giggle and they laugh and they chat and they swear, and the country folk are just wonderful. They really are wonderful. I really love the country folk more than the townsfolk. So I'd like to just read just tiny excerpts. But before I do, I want to introduce you to Dorothy Max Pryor, who has herself written a memoir, and I'm really happy for her to tell us about her memoir and also a little bit about her style of memoir writing that might inspire you as well. Over to you, Max.
Hi, hello, everybody. Yeah, so first of all, to pick up on the story of meeting Beth, I started an online class in March 2020, and that class is called I still run it sometimes. It's called Inventing the Truth, which is not an original phrase. I stole that off somebody because there's a book that I found very helpful when I was doing my MA writing many years ago. It's called Inventing the Truth. And I just really love that phrase because it kind of sums up my thoughts and feelings about memoir writing, which is that it is a form of creation, a form of invention, just as much as any other form of creative writing. And the kind of essence of the class is really very much that this is a creative writing class, and you have to kind of craft your words, craft your writing in exactly the same way, actually, whether it's, you know, supposedly the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, or it's something that you make up. And also very early on in the course, I think possibly even on the first class, we talked about writers' choices and how some people, we picked as an example Jeanette Winterson and the fact that she published Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit as a novel. It happens to have a lead character called Jeanette, and many of the things that happened in Jeanette Winterson's life happen into the character in that novel. But she was always very clear that this is not an autobiography, you know, this is a novel. And a lot of the incidents in her life are fictionalized within that story. She much later on did write a memoir called Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal, which is apparently something that her mother had said to her, and that has a lot of the same incidents that we already encountered in Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, but it told in a kind of different sort of way. So that was quite a nice example to look at for the different ways that writers can kind of address the same material. Another example we picked was Maya Angelou, who published her, whatever it was, 7 volumes of autobiography. And she always stayed with nonfiction writing, but and poetry, but much later in her life, she came back to the relationship with her mother and a lot of the incidents in her life, and actually wrote about them in quite a different way. And that was a useful way for us within the class to also talk about the fact that the I that's writing is a different, you know, you're a different person today to the person you were, well, 10 years ago, but you're also a different person today to the person that you were like a week ago or a day ago. And we're constantly reevaluating what we think about our past. So we're constantly recreating our own past. That's something, whether we write or not, that's something that we kind of do all the time in our life. You know, we revisit, we reevaluate, and the stories change and shift, and with the telling of the stories, they change and shift. So one of the things that was said to Beth and to others, you know, very early on in the process was just allow yourself the freedom to just write. Don't worry too much about what it is. You know, that's the decision when you come to publishing. That's the decision that you, if you're self-publishing, or that your publisher, if you have a publisher, or your literary agent or editor, or whatever, that those decisions can come later, actually, of what it is, you know, and whether it's a memoir or a novel or also fiction or whatever label we give it, it's writing. And so, you know. So actually in the class, we did a lot of exactly the same exercises you're doing in any sort of creative writing classes, where we're looking, say, at the development of character, because, you know, whether people are real characters, whether you've made them up, they're people. They're people. For somebody reading a memoir, you know, your mother or your sister or whoever, that they're as much a fictional character to the reader as anybody else is. Yeah. You know, they have to be developed in the same way. And it's like, was it Michael who said earlier about, well, you know, the thing about memoir is, you know, your own story, but the person reading it has to discover things. You have to sort of sell it to them, basically. And as was also said earlier, one of the things that Beth is particularly brilliant at, and that I sort of noticed straight away in her writing, and was really, really enjoyed, was the sense of place, you know, and the sort of conjuring up of Cuba. But it was in other pieces of writing you did as well, you know, as part of the course. I mean, you often you know, landscape and architecture and, you know, material objects, material possessions, the sort of way you conjure up, you know, a hotel room or as well as a kind of plaza in Havana or whatever. You have a really great sense of, you know, of the material world and a sense of place, which I really loved in writing. And I'm just so excited that it's got to the sort of stage where it's actually out there. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. Because when I joined you, I never really thought it would be published. It was just so not something to do, but it was, I don't know what it was. I never thought it would come to this. And I think one of the things that always stuck with me, Max, was in the writing is show, don't tell. And I remember often you would say you need to show the reader, don't keep telling them. Of course, you've got to tell at some point, because it's, if you're writing facts, you can't just show facts. You've got to tell the fact.
Yeah.
But to really make the story full and fluid, it's about showing. God, I can't remember. F. Scott Fitzgerald. I think I remember we did something with him where the waiters were carrying glasses of champagne on a tray, and the way he described the way they walked, they were like birds, and you could really get a sense of these tall, majestic waiters with the tray and the way they walked. Their feathers were fluttering. I was just conjuring up this feeling of the way people were. So I think that's what Max did for me and helped me to understand how to write and how to describe. Thank you. And this is, if you can see this, this is Max's book. Oh no. Oh, that's Max.
Oh, I've got one here.
Please show me yours. That's better.
Exhibition Road. So it's published by Strange Attractor. It's distributed by Penguin Random House. So you can actually buy it anywhere, order it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've put that.
I have started to read your book, Max. I didn't know you were such. I didn't know you were such a gal.
I know. Well,
if you get a hold of a copy, you really need to read that book, because Max's style of writing is so different to mine. I was very intrigued by the way you wrote. It's really was like such a conversation we were having with your mates, and I really love that style. Very light, but I haven't read all of it yet. So.
Oh, well, thank you for your kind words. And
Thank you.
I mean, I you know, I'm doing a book tour at the moment, and sort of sometimes with other writers, you know, and it comes up a lot of the time. There's often questions around choices of whether to fictionalize or whether to just present something as memoir and whatever. And I think everybody just ends up making their own choices.
Yeah.
I think because this was about the 70s and punk times, and there's a lot of well-known names in it, it would have been kind of quite odd to fictionalize it, although I suppose that would have been possible, but it's better to just keep it as was. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Max. Thank you for what
you and you know,
thank you for what you gave me. You gave me an inspiration and an opportunity to show myself, have a different side to myself. And in fact, when I start to write, I think maybe many of you get the same feeling. When you start to write, you just get lost in that space and often don't want to come out again. It's such a better place to be, just sitting and writing and letting your thoughts flow and being in a different world altogether, to get away from the everyday that we do. So thank you, Max. I shall always remember what you've done.
Thank you for your,
thank you. So I'd like to read.
Congratulations, on getting there.
Thank you. So I want to just read a couple of pieces from a couple of chapters, not very long, but a little bit in contrast, to give you an idea of something in the story. So, okay, here I go. I shall read. I'm a very fast reader. I will try to really slow down and not make your head. Okay, so I continued to sit, the waiting becoming a purgatory. How much longer would this continue? I let time while away. Following a movement in front of me, my eyes tracked the short flight of a bird as it flew to the top of a tall plinth, settling on the head of the white marble statue of Jose Marti, a young hero of the old Cuban Revolution. His marble memory, surrounded by tall, slender green royal palm trees, bending gently from a sea breeze blowing off the Malecon, Havana's famous waterfront. Marti gave his young life for Cuba's independence, a revolution that would change Cuba from a rich, sugar-producing country with its capital Havana, built on borrowed lines, elegant Spanish architecture of cavernous proportions, to a run-down walnut city. Across from Marti, a golden-topped cathedral, richly carved, a white stucco and stone edifice rose like a star, a shining blaze to the lofty offices of tobacco companies where one can buy the famous Cohiba cigars. But don't buy from their store. Find a pretty boy to take you just round the corner, a back street where one can buy a box of 20 for 100, 30 for himself, and $70 for the seller. Always a helping hand around the corner. I pressed the recall button on my phone endless times, but a long, slow buzz told me he would not answer. Throughout the day, a furious, continuous round of vehicles circled the plaza. There were the droning sounds of cars, buses, honking, traffic lights on wires blinking, and pedicabs blaring out reggaeton and salsa music, making hips unconsciously wiggle and sway. From the shade of the old 1896 Hotel Inglaterra, a continuous humdrum of tourists and locals, eager and impatient, hurried in all directions of streets and alleyways, under a sun full of fury and fire. But by late afternoon, a sudden hush. The frazzled heat had arrived, still and sticky, and somnolence descended. A passing ice cream vendor stopped near me. I pulled myself up and walked towards him, buying a moment of coolness, anything to bring down the rage inside me. My senses had begun to drift across waves of the afternoon, suffocating heat, as I tiredly looked at the old men still sitting in the plaza. The mood of the afternoon shifted slightly as elderly grey-haired ladies joined them, wearing long, faded floral dresses, fabric threadbare and worn, hair pinned back, cloth shopping bags hanging from loose fingers, dragging bodies, wearied by an age of living tough on meager handouts. Particles of thought stopped as I held her in my vision. She ambled on bent legs, an old, pretty-faced, wrinkled woman, her cheeks smooth and high, shining in the heat. A bunch of bright pink bougainvillea was tucked in her hair. Her dress was a brightly colored, assorted bundle of cloth. She found a solitary bench and sat down with the largest cigar one can imagine between pursed lips. She drew heavily on this tourist attraction, its end lighting up, her eyes closed. And slowly, sorry, I got this wrong, and eyes closed. She let out a ring of smoke, a perfect O, and slowly opened her hard, careworn eyes to see who was taking a photo of her. Her lips turned upwards as her deeply creased, worn brown hands extended outwards. Throughout the relenting heat of the day, as passers-by wove in and around and passed me by, I too felt a separation from myself as I crisscrossed shattered memories of times past, called his phone, now at least 30 times, remembering promises of him coming. How much longer will you be before you come to Havana? I'll be there soon. I won't go any further with that. Two days before I returned home, another hot day arose. A glorious still blue sky with a dry Sahara wind blowing gustily. The Chevrolet stood outside the casa, long-finned, summer blue and cream paintwork, washed and polished. Tahoe stood against the passenger door, a slight smile across his lips, but not his eyes. Vale, vamos, we go for a ride as promised. Come, Gina, you want to drive? I sat behind the wheel. Yay! Greece flashed through my mind for that wonderful car chase along the river basin between Danny and Leo. And I looked at the gear stick on the side of the steering wheel, and never having driven that type of car, declined laughingly and let him take over. Tahoe stood on the pavement. I caught his face in the wing mirror, looking at the car as we sped away past him. I had a sense that although he and Alex were good friends, he had stronger feelings than just good friends. It was only a sense. But nothing was going to daunt my mood that day. We drove along towards nowhere in particular, meandering through the countryside, just enjoying the morning sun, the wind rushing in through the open window, jeep taxis tooting as we went by with shouts and laughter from his friends. Windows down, music blaring, impossible to talk about the music, companionable silence as he took my hand in his. Peace in our world for those moments. I'm going to stop there. So the thing that was about Cuba was for me always this amazing sense of looking at paintings. Everywhere that I looked, it was like an artist's palette in one hand and mushes of color on the palette, and you could take a big brush and paintbrush and just draw great broad strokes of scenes. And it has this kind of diffused lushness to it that I've not seen anywhere else, and the same dry aridness and the heat. And I really liked that about Cuba, and I really liked that I was able to hopefully try and get a sense of this kind of painterly lushness. And the whole thing of the car was, or is in the story, something else, something that you will discover when you come to read the story, what the car stood for, what it represented, what it actually did for the people, how it brought joy to so many things. Because as many of you know, those American cars, all spare parts for those American cars in Cuba kind of stopped around the 1950s. And so all the cars literally had gleaming bodies, but the insides were made about so many hundreds of different cars from all around Cuba. And they still got around. I think today it's changed, but those cars are so iconic now. And they're so beautiful. And I actually bought a car. I bought a Chevrolet when I was in that period of time. It's a beautiful car. I couldn't believe I'd actually seen this 1950s American car was mine. But not for very long anyway. So there are many, many parts to the story. I said not romance. There may be elements of romance, but there's so many, I think there's a lot, in fact, there's vanity. There's a lot of vanity in it. It's probably the vanity of Gina, of the age of the woman that she was, of what she wanted, and the vanity of the people. And that kind of vanity can be a good or not so good vanity. But anyway, if you read the book, I think you'll get more and more sense of what the story is like. So I'm going to bring this to a close, because if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to do so. Rachel's going to read out any questions, and happy to answer anything that you want to ask me. You can ask me. Would I go back to Cuba? Yes. After 8 years of being away, having written the book, I want to go back there again now, because it's some amazing, and when I say amazing, I mean really amazing things that happen over there. The way they all help each other. You'll see them always well dressed because they share clothes with each other. The lives that they live over there, they're still queuing to buy things in the shops. They do have a sense of happiness. I don't know how. They're very resilient people. The scenery of Cuba itself, one of the biggest Caribbean islands, the scenery itself is magnificent. So definitely, I didn't see all of it. I saw a lot of it. Spanish architecture. It's Havana is a World Heritage Site now. Definitely. What have you learned? Oh, I didn't see that. What have I learned?
Yeah, so what have you learned about yourself during this process? That's from Rona.
That I'm thick-skinned. I must be thick-skinned. I can't keep going back for more trouble. I think I've learned a lot about accepting the kind of person I am. You know, I could try to change who I am, but if I did, I wouldn't be able to be as optimistic about moving forward in my life. So I think that experience was, okay, I made a lot of mistakes. Get over it and learn as much as you can. If you do make similar, handle it differently. What advice would you give to any of us who would like to write a book? Oh, wow. We've got so many good writers over here. Is that from Joanne? Be passionate. Always keep your passion for what you're writing. I don't know, Max, would you agree with that?
I think Max says.
I'm right. I'm still here.
No, she's there.
I'm about to exit, but oh no, I'm all right. I've got 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, I think passion. I think be passionate's really good advice. And yeah, I mean, people say write what you know, but sometimes there's things we know and we don't particularly feel that, you know, we don't feel that's the story we want to tell to the world. I mean, I know a lot about motherhood and breastfeeding and things, but so far I haven't tell. I mean, maybe I will one day, but do you know what I mean? It's like yeah, you know, choose the thing that you really care about, choose the story that you really want to tell. And it can be a really teeny weeny story, it can be a massive, great big story. You know, I think it can just be anything you want to tell.
Yeah, I think so. In fact, the sky's the limit, isn't it? You can write for anything. Rona has written a wonderful book.
I must go. I'm going to say
bye, Max. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks. Good luck with your book.
Thank you, and you with yours, and everybody else with theirs.
Thank you.
More books in the world. Hurrah!
More books. Yes, more books. Yeah. And Rona has also written an amazing story. I think did you have an interview with the BBC today, Rona?
I was supposed to have the BBC World Service radio, but it's been put off till later in the week.
Okay. Do you want to just mention the title of your book?
My book's called I Don't Talk to Dead Bodies, The Curious Encounters of a Forensic Psychiatrist. I've just got an answer for Joanna, though. Joanna asked about tips. I think one tip is I've not read your book yet, Beth, but from the reading that you gave, your writing styles are so descriptive, and as people have been saying, you know, you pull you in and you can imagine being there. And that's clearly you talk about your interest taking photographs and being nosy, and you know so that style fits you. And I'm very much a storyteller. I just tell the story as if I was saying it. And so my book's written like that. And I think the best tip is to write in the style that's natural to you, and not try to be descriptive or flowery or whatever if that's not how you are. And you know, because I think it's forced otherwise. So yours comes across beautifully because it's how you see the world, and you know, and you articulate it very well. I couldn't do that if you paid me. So I think the thing is find out about yourself and how your storytelling comes over best, and be true to yourself. So yeah, that's helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dave's gone. So how about you, Alan? Do you have any tips at all?
I think the thing that I would say is let the story take you. Don't get too set when you start out of saying, oh, I'm going to do this. I mean, it's a bit hard with a memoir or a biography not to do that. But let the story take you, because the characters will tell you where they want to go.
Yeah.
And that makes, okay, you need a little bit in between telling, you know, stages in between where you want to get to tell the story, but let the characters take you there.
Yeah.
They will surprise you, and it'll be far more realistic.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so
That's all
I really wanted. Sorry.
All the questions that we just got.
Having held your first book launch, would you do anything different? Oh, absolutely. I would have a face-to-face one, if that would be possible. I definitely think I would love to be able to give you all a big hug, and really, it's a different feeling. But I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to even do this. This is a really good learning. Yes, there's plenty of things I would do differently. The way I'd introduce it, maybe not talk so much. I'd like to probably even have more guest writers, even though this is a book launch for me. I know that there are other writers over here who also launched their books, and I hope it brings back good memories for them. For me, I like to hear other people's stories as well, not just my story. So yes, if I did another book launch, I would definitely be launching not myself, but other people as well. Give them an opportunity to relive their memories, and maybe even have a brand new author who's just about to launch a book like Helen, talk a little bit about her book as well. I think it inspires those who haven't written a book, who don't know us, to maybe think, well, I can do it. And if it's not about writing a book, it may be something else that they really want to do, but they've been nervous about. Because writing a book is huge. We all know how long it's taken us to sit and write these books. It took me over 2 years. And I think that now I probably would rewrite parts of it again. So it is it is absolutely massive. And the marketing of it is even huger. I find it even more difficult than writing the book. I found the book easy compared to sitting over here. It's like self-promotion. I've never been good at that. So you're promoting yourself. You become a product in a way. It's a bit like coaching, I think, with Rachel. You know, we, in the same way as we do this book launch, when we're doing our coaching to get our clients, we're selling ourselves. We are the product. We're offering our services. And how do you do that? How do you engage? It's about engaging with people. How do you engage with people so that they actually believe you? Do you have any events coming up where we can meet you face to face? Oh, I'm hoping to do some more book readings in my local library. And I know that I registered to go and do some book fairs in Tain up in Scotland and in Nairn. So I'm learning the ropes. There's so much to learn. This is a new world.
Hopefully you can. So hopefully you can meet myself and Ian Pilbeam next week as well. We'll have a mini face-to-face.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. And I know there's Ruth. I want to meet her face to face, and then I can meet Rona face to face, and we can chat, and anybody else who's living up in Scotland. Because traveling is no problem up here. We travel distances, vast differences all the time. So yes, I think there's a lot. I have a list. In fact, there's a publisher who is happy to publish my book until I looked at the price that he's going to charge. I thought, oops. About £2,500 that they're going to charge me to publish my book. Well, okay. There's lots to learn. This is a brand new learning process. And I think in the group that I'm with, write that book, there's so many people who've got so many good ideas, and we share all the time and help each other out. And that's one of the beauties of being in a supportive writing group. I think that's definitely something I will be more active with, just giving support and receiving support and learning, but how to do this, how to do that. There's so many elements to all of this. This is not straightforward. And I hope I can get back to writing now, actually. I've stopped writing for some time, so I think I want to get back to writing again. Yeah. If any of you want to know how you can access my book, I think Rachel put it in the chat.
Put it in
my website.
Yeah.
It's in the thank you for your good wishes. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I really hope that when any of you are going to be launching the book, please, I will definitely come and be supportive of you, because now I see the value of all of this. So thank you, everyone, everywhere around the world. Debbie from Florida. There's Debbie over there. She's sitting in Florida. And we talk a lot on Facebook. So that's fantastic. Somebody from Florida has taken the time to come to my first book launch. I'm really grateful. Maybe I'll do another book launch. Might become a habit or something like that. I'm going to do an audiobook, Alan. Yes, definitely. But I've been told, I think Michael does something about, hi, thank you, Sally. Michael does something about audiobooks. So I think it'll be great, because from what I'm hearing about books these days, a lot of the younger generation prefer audiobooks to reading. And in fact, the beauty of audio is that you can be sitting in your car, you can be in your kitchen cooking or whatever, and just listening. It's more passive, but why not? If it still gets the word out there, if somebody's still listening to a story, I think audiobooks. I love audiobooks when I'm driving long distances. I love them to keep me awake. But audiobooks, I think, are definitely part of our life going forward. Definitely. Yes, that's the next thing. Woo! Thank you. Can we have some music, please, Rachel, my darling?
Absolutely.
Some salsa to finish off. And if you want to have a dance, please feel free to dance salsa. Who likes salsa dancing, by the way? Who dances salsa? Anybody? Hey, Yanni, I know. Hi, Yanni. I didn't saw you. Hi. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And I cannot tell you how much and how grateful I am for you coming and helping and supporting me. I love you so much. That sounds so crass, doesn't it? But I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you. Mwah. Cheers to all of you. I hope I get to meet every single one of you one day. I met Gustavo. I know my darling Tina. I know Rachel. I know Joe. I know Yanni. I know Ginny. And I know Jennifer. So personally, and Rona will be soon. So Debbie in Florida. Here's to Florida.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Beth,
And
when
Paula
you're
is my
coming to
cousin.
London?
Paula, she's my
When you're
cousin.
coming to London?
Yes, oh, very soon. Quite soon, Gustavo. We shall meet
Okay,
up and have
let
a
us
drink.
know.
Yes, will do. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Do you want to sit and chat? Please don't.
I'll just stop the recording.
Thank you.